This is one of my only times I've posted on Reddit. In the early morning darkness I found my way onto this subreddit, and I need advice. Backstory: my partner and I have been together about 6 years. I am an independent artist, and at the time my career was on an upward trajectory, and she had just quit a job that left her traumatized, and I invited her to work with me, proud at the thought of actualizing part of my lifelong fantasy of being able to provide an amazing lifestyle to the person I love. At the start of the pandemic we uprooted our urban lives and relocated to a place she inherited in very isolated rural location. She soon became deeply depressed. She identifies as a city girl, and felt she had made a damning choice and was filled with regret. She also struggles with what I would consider to be, based on what I've been exposed to in life, pretty intense anxiety. I didn't really know how to cope with being immersed in an environment that was so emotionally tumultuous. I felt like I had ruined her life. It slowly eroded at my confidence. I also felt like I had to do all the providing for us, since my platform had been our only source of income, and was facing increasing financial insecurity as my business withers. For probably the majority of this time, intense outbursts of negative emotions would occur on a daily basis. Anything I could say to attempt to console or reassure her would invariably make it worse, usually leading to argumentative volleying of points between us with no real understanding. If I'm honest, at no other point in life would I have likely stayed with somebody through the endless heartbreaking hours of hearing her sobbing. Let me be clear, I love her immensely, but I would never have endured this had the alternative been so extreme. I began to feel like I was living in fear or her bad feelings, which could be triggered easily, always having to choose my words carefully and so on. I didn't know how to process the things she would say or the emotions that I would feel when she was being anxious and depressed. It would seem sometimes like the anxiety would warp her view on things, like she would go down some Reddit rabbit hole and convinced that I'm constantly gaslighting and manipulating her or something, despite my profound efforts to genuinely connect and nurture her. One time she became convinced I was going to hit her, which I would never do. It really disturbed me. It began to feel like a kind of despair and hope were in constantly conflict, producing a dissonance in me that didn't make me feel like myself. She would vent and unload so much on me and then go to bed for the rest of the day and feel better, while I would be left starting a screen with zero work getting done and thoughts racing all night. It got to the point where she basically got overwhelmed by everything. I realized I had to do everything, think of anything that might cause her to get upset and take care of it, deal with everything for her. Feeling less and less like myself, for psychological reasons I don't fully understand, but having always been one to hide my pain, I grew increasingly withdrawn from friends, not able to respond to MSGs and such, feeling like I was a ghost of the person they had MSG'd. Somehow, in all the isolation with all the intense chaotic emotions, and unresolving dissonance in my heart and mind, I started having panic attacks about a year ago, as a middle-aged person with no prior mental health issues. It's happened about 20 times I'd say since then, my heart ID pounding racing and I'm dripping sweat and shaking uncontrollably and screeching. I haven't told anybody about this. I also know that these attacks stem from this relationship and all the stress it causes my heart. So about a year ago the depression was at its worst. When I started really prioritizing her needs, things started getting so much better. She didn't have to crippled by overwhelm. She felt very cared for as she managed to build up her own business, make friends, and is doing so much better. I'm really proud of her for that. So things have much better. In fact, the past year our relationship felt like we had worked through so many things. It felt like the selfless love I had been able to channel had healed us. As you might imagine, during the times of turbulence our sex life was non-existent at points. It has gotten so much better, like gah. We've been talking about really exploring that side of our connection deeply this winter. She has some kinks around being submissive which came up early in our relationship, and I feel as though I always encouraged her to feel safe to open up to me and shown I'm happy to explore with her, actually more than happy. Okay, I think that's enough relevant backstory. Recap: I live in middle of nowhere with my long-term partner and no support network. She seemed distant in a way I hadn't noticed before past few weeks, didn't think much of it. I'm just so happy she's leveled out her emotions and doing so much better. So she came downstairs the night after Christmas after being on the phone with her friend. She came to tell me that she was more than friends with him, and that they had a sexual relationship and been exploring psychological dominance and submission. That he had started talking to her about kink stuff and she had realized how repressed she is about it. When she was telling me this, I didn't recognize her. I honestly thought she was on drugs or under a spell or something. It was really disturbing, like an altered state. Turns out the past few weeks she's been on subreddit kinks non-stop and talking to this guy. This has happened over Christmas with the person my whole life revolves around, the person I live with and spend every day with, right under my nose. I realized it wasn't nearly as bad as I first thought, but at first, oh man, I suppose it might be something like a near-death experience, facing the prospect of leaving this life in a broken state to drive into the night with nothing. I've been trying to rationalize it by thinking it's like looking at porn or something, which the psychological compartmentalization, which I can relate to. She came down and told me about this before things got out of hand. It had been way more innocent than I thought at first. At first it seemed like I had no option but to leave everything, but the more I could piece together, and she's eased off the phone addiction a few days, she seems back to her normal self now. I don't know, I've never been knowingly cheating on, but something just switched in me, I think, where I am becoming kind of unattached, which I think is actually very healthy for me now. She knows she's wronged me deeply and feels terrible. This whole situation can make a man very insecure obviously, but she assures me I have nothing to feel insecure about, etc. This all started from chatting with a good friend of hers who is in the BDSM scene and their flirting leading her down obsessive subreddit rabbit holes of submission kink, which is why she seemed distant over Christmas. Perhaps sudden immersion in things these repressed, along with her tendency to get obsessive about things, just got her into such a weird head state, off her usual eating habits, etc. She sent him nudes and things got inappropriate. I dunno, WTF do you guys think of this? Is this cheating? Is this somebody that should be forgiven, or would I be a spineless coward to even consider staying with somebody who could demean and hurt me like this? Does anybody have similar experience? Luckily, the only thing that helped me calm down is realizing I don't need to make any sudden moves. I can stay here until I can build myself up somewhat enough to move somewhere else and start over. Something in my heart is now dead. I think I feel disrespected as fuck and absolutely disgusted with her honestly, but am not even mad at her really. I've seen her suffer so much and I just want the best for her, but yeah, I think I made some questionable choices to be in this position in life, lol fuck. Before writing this out I've reached out to like 20 ppl, which is huge for me. I'm finally opening up and gonna talk about this with good friends. I dunno, I think somehow, being the eternal optimist, this is going to end up being good? I dunno, honestly I'm disorientated, confused, shocked, etc. as fuck. Any thoughts, advice, feedback, whatever is appreciated. I need perspective. Thanks for reading.